An interrogation is the process of formally and systematically questioning an individual with the aim of eliciting useful information related to a suspected crime, and is carried out by trained law enforcement officers or intelligence agencies. An interrogation is not the same as an interview. In fact, they would be conducted at completely separate stages of an investigation. An individual being interviewed by the police is not necessarily suspected to be guilty of anything, but may have knowledge surrounding the victim or crime that is necessary for the investigation. An interview is the first stage in the information gathering process and is often non-accusatory with a conversational nature. The investigator will mostly use open-ended questions to establish certain facts and details. If an individual is interrogated by the police, it is generally because they are believed to be directly involved in the crime, with either direct or strong circumstantial evidence to support this. During an interrogation, the investigator will often dominate the majority of the conversation. It is purposefully designed to be accusatory in nature, with the aim of encouraging the suspect to first make admissions of guilt and then ultimately confess to their involvement in the crime. Throughout history, interrogations were traditionally carried out alongside physical coercion and torture, known as enhanced interrogation techniques. At the time, it was widely accepted that denying a person access to food, water, and sleep, along with inflicting extreme physical pain, would make them more amenable to interrogation and therefore more likely to expose any information they possessed. For example, British soldiers used these techniques following the end of the Second World War to interrogate German prisoners and those suspected of committing espionage on behalf of the Soviet Union. The Bad Nendorf Interrogation Centre closed in 1947 after just 2 years of being open, following serious allegations of abuse and mistreatment on the prisoners. The US Armed Forces and CIA were also known for subjecting prisoners to beatings, waterboarding, and sensory deprivation to elicit confessions. These interrogations took place in various sites like Guantanamo Bay. It is unknown exactly how many people died as a result of these extremely inhumane interrogations. But following public controversy and internal investigations, both the legal standards and public expectations of how interrogations should be carried out became much higher. Police have adapted to these regulations, and there are many effective and more humane techniques that can successfully lower the confidence of a suspect and increase their likelihood of confessing. It is important for interrogators to be able to read both the mindset and body language of the suspect, as the direction of the interrogation will change depending on both the verbal and non-verbal cues picked up by the investigator. The setting that the interrogation takes place in is also important, as this helps to establish the role and relative power of the investigator and suspect.
Before an interview begins, Harris makes sure the box is set up in a way that gives him a psychological edge. The walls are kept blank.
When people are under a lot of anxiety, their mind can wander and focus on posters or pictures instead of focusing on you.
The suspect's chair on straight legs, while the interrogator's is on rollers.
Because I may start off being 3 to 4 feet away, but when they're right about to confess, I may be within inches of them.
Techniques will differ depending on the suggestibility of the suspect, the type of crime they are suspected of committing, and the country or state that the crime took place in. In the US and Canada, the Reid Technique has been widely used since the 1950s. This method is based on psychological manipulation and evaluation, with the aim of getting confessions from suspects who may not otherwise have been willing to confess. An interrogation conducted using the Reid technique will not always follow the same pattern, but there are 9 key steps that should be followed. The first step is direct confrontation. This involves the investigator presenting facts of the case, whether real or not, in order to raise the suspect's stress levels, while also moving closer to the suspect to increase their levels of discomfort. The next step is done in a non-threatening manner. Theme development is where the investigator will offer an explanation as to why the suspect committed the crime, by making some sort of moral excuse or justification that the suspect is responsive to. Stopping denials is a key step in the interrogation process. This is because allowing the suspect to verbally deny their guilt will only help to increase their confidence and resilience to questioning. Interrupting all attempts at denial helps to keep the suspect's confidence low and generate feelings of powerlessness. An objection is different to a denial in that it can give the investigator information that can be used against the suspect, and if handled correctly, the investigator can make the objection look more like an admission of guilt. For example, a suspect may make an objection such as, "My sister was sexually abused as a child, and I saw how much it hurt her. I could never rape someone. I would never do that." An investigator using the Reid technique may respond by saying, "That's good. You're saying that you wouldn't ever plan to do that. It was out of your control. I know you care about women like your sister. It was just a mistake." By this point in the interrogation, the suspect should be feeling frustrated and unsure of themselves. Investigators will capitalize on this by appearing to be the suspect's ally and friend. This is achieved by using first names, getting physically closer, and offering gestures of concern like patting the suspect on the back or touching their shoulder, which makes it more difficult for them to detach from the situation. The suspect will most likely be feeling a sense of defeat due to their inability to successfully deflect and deny the investigator's accusations. Their body language will often reveal this: hunched shoulders, head in their hands, and elbows on their knees. If the suspect becomes emotional or cries at this point, it is important for them to feel supported and comforted by the investigator, as this is often a sign of remorse or guilt. Saying something like, "I know how much you've tried to keep this inside, but I'm glad to see those tears because they tell me you're sorry this thing ever happened. You are sorry you did this, aren't you?" The alternative question is probably the most important stage. The investigator will present the suspect with two potential but equally incriminating motives for them committing the crime. One will be more socially acceptable, such as, "It was a crime of passion, wasn't it?" Whereas the other will be much more undesirable and widely viewed as inexcusable, such as, "You killed them for the money, right?" The phrasing of the alternative question is important and ideally would require the suspect to merely nod their head or say yes, as this makes it easier for them to admit their guilt. The investigator must develop any admissions of guilt that followed from the previous stage into a legally binding confession. This is done by using open-ended questions and avoiding any realistic or highly emotional terminology. Often, other investigators will be brought into the interrogation room to witness the confession with the aim of increasing the suspect's stress levels and willingness to confess. Once satisfied that they have obtained a sufficient confession, the investigator will have the suspect write it out so it can be used later as evidence. At this point, the suspect is often willing to do anything to escape the interrogation. Now that all of the stages have been explained, it is much easier to identify them being used.
Can you explain to my partner and I why that you were positively identified as the person who shot that gun?
It's a misconception. That's a lie. I did not shoot that gun. I did not have a firearm in my hand.
We can prove that. We're beyond that point, buddy. We're beyond that, man. And based on our investigation and the trajectory and stuff like that, we sort of believe that it probably.
I did not have that firearm in my hand at all.
It could have been a fucking accident. It could have been an accidental discharge. Okay, but when you're completely denying that, then I gotta think another way, bro. Because,
dude, it's the truth. I didn't have that firearm in my hand whatsoever.
Well, you're not. Maybe you're not listening to what I'm saying.
We're gonna process that fucking gun, and you know what it's gonna tell us? Your prints are on that gun. Now, when we present all this shit to the fucking judge, and your lawyer's going, yeah, dude, maybe you shouldn't have fucked with these detectives.
I'm not fucking with you. I didn't touch that gun whatsoever.
You did.
I know what I did.
You?
I know what I did. I drank beer and watched frickin' Richard shoot the shit in the ground.
Right. Okay.
And
And
I
after
don't know.
that happened, you went inside.
I
You
went,
were
woo, boom.
and you came outside and you shot another round.
I did not. I didn't do it.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you
I
did.
did not.
This is like I'm dealing with a 5-year-old, Jimmy. That's what I can't understand.
There's people saying you did. Your buddies are saying you fucking did. We got independent witnesses.
I didn't do it.
You can't tell us that you didn't fucking fire that 4th shot anymore. You can't tell us. We can prove otherwise. And if you do, the fucking judge is going to throw the fucking book at you. You fired that 4th shot, brother. We can prove it.
There was only 3 shots.
No, there's
No,
4.
there's 4.
There's 4, bro. There's 4, dude. You fired the 4th shot. Now, we need to know if you tried to kill that deputy or did you just discharge a firearm. And that's the misdemeanor. We need to find out. We have a good idea, but we want to hear it from you. We have a good idea what your intention was, based on the trajectory of the round. We have witnesses observing this shit, because they've already heard 3 before rounds. Okay, there's witnesses that observed it. Deputies already on the other side of the street watching you, setting up on the house. The guy has a fucking rifle trained at the front door, because he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. Well, you fired that shot, brother. Think back real hard. Think back real hard so we can at least say, you know what, the guy at the end, he came clean. We don't think he was trying to kill anybody, but yeah, that's the 4th round that's there. I'm not going to make shit up. There's 4 rounds there, bro. All your roommates know it. Richard knows it. The independent witnesses know it. And there's a fucking deputy watching you.
Not
He's
only
watching
that,
you from down the street.
the shell casings match the bullets that are inside of the gun. We're going to show that the extraction marks that it came from that gun match that of the shell casings that we found on scene. And we're going to put all of that together. So that means that we've got that 1 round that deputy witnessed you pull the trigger.
You did it. You made a mistake, dude. You discharged a firearm in public. That's a misdemeanor, brother. And we could tell you weren't trying to hit the deputy because we know the trajectory of the round.
We have an eyewitness
I remember
who
up
puts
to
a
the
gun in
point.
your hand. No, you don't remember up to a point. You remember the whole thing.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
I do not.
Yes,
Honest
you
to
do.
God, man.
Oh, no, I'm being honest to God, and so is my partner, and so is the deputy that witnessed you because he broadcast it over a radio. And we're pulling the tapes right now. We're pulling the dispatch tapes. And you know what those dispatch tapes are going to describe? You. Holding a gun. But I'm going to tell you something. You sit here and you hold on to this story. I'm just telling you, it's not a threat. When we put all of the evidence together in a court of law, it's not going to look good, my friend. It's not going to look good. We know you did it. You know you did it.
And everyone in the house says that too?
What do you think? Do I really have to answer that question?
In the UK, a much less confrontational method of interrogation is used, called PEACE, which is an acronym for Preparation and Planning, Engage and Explain, Account, Closure, and Evaluate. Investigators using this method should conduct their investigation before the interrogation takes place, so that any evidence or witness statements can be included in their plan. This kind of cognitive interview presumes that the suspect is innocent, and it is important for the suspect to be allowed to give their full account of what happened without being interrupted. Only after the suspect has given their account will any inconsistencies or contradictions be pointed out by the investigators, but this is usually done in a non-confrontational manner. The PEACE method does not allow for high levels of accusation or deception to be used, as this helps to avoid leading a suspect to falsely confess. Regardless of what technique investigators use to interrogate a suspect, getting a confession is a highly complicated process that requires not only creativity and confidence, but also psychological expertise. No 2 interrogations are alike, and a confession is not always guaranteed. For example, in the US, It is estimated that between 42 and 55% of suspects will confess during an interrogation. The fact that the most hardened criminals, as well as those who are innocent, can end up confessing demonstrates the knowledge and manipulation tactics that interrogators possess. Whether or not these tactics are worth using, despite the possibility of false confessions, continues to be widely debated.